So for our 100th episode, I've decided to make Snickerdoodle Cake. This is kind of a complicated recipe. It's a 3-layer cake that you actually cut in half and have 3 separate fillings. But we'll get to that at a later date. First, we gotta bake the cake. So I'm gonna start off with 9 cups of cake flour, 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, and yes, I said tablespoons. And when this is double the recipe because it's a bigger cake. If you only want to make an 8-inch cake, feel free to cut all this in half. 3 teaspoons of salt and 4 tablespoons of baking powder. We're going to stir that together. We're going to add this to our butter, alternating with our milk mixture, which is 4.5 cups of buttermilk at room temperature and 2 tablespoons of vanilla. Stir that together. And now we need to cream our butter and sugar. So in my stand mixer, I've got 6 sticks of butter. Yes, I know that's a lot of butter, but it's a 3-layer 12-inch cake, so it's gonna spread out, maybe. I have 5.5 cups of white sugar, and we are going to cream this together for about 5 minutes. Starting out slow, working our way up, but getting air in so that it's nice and creamy and fluffy. Our sugar and butter is nice and fluffy, and now I'm gonna add the egg whites. 18 of them, or 2.5 cups. Now I know what you're thinking, who on earth has 18 egg whites laying around? And it's the person who's making 3 trays of banana pudding, because I need 18 egg yolks for that. So, here are my egg whites. Pouring in. Also, room temperature is very important with these egg whites. And we are going to go for another 5 minutes. So we're turning it on, starting low, building up. So, egg whites, done. Now we're gonna alternate our dry ingredients and our wet ingredients. 1/3 of this, half of that, 1/3 of this, half of that, until it's all mixed together. Half of the wet ingredients. Another 1/3 of our dry ingredients. Last half of our wet ingredients. And the last of our dry ingredients. This is the fun part where you experiment with how much your mixer can hold. now it's time to put in our pans. So our batter is mixed, and I use that term loosely because I think I overwhelmed my mixer today. So I'm just going to stir it up, make sure we get all the pieces at the bottom. And then I have 3 12-inch pans that I have coated in pan grease, which if you have never watched me make a cake before, let me tell you, it is equal parts vegetable shortening, vegetable oil, and flour. So I make a big batch of it and then keep it, and it keeps at room temperature. I keep it for months. Sometimes it separates, but all I do is whisk it all back together again. So I'm trying to evenly split between my 3 pans. Occasionally you get a little messy. So all I'm going to do is shake the pans to make sure that the batter is evenly distributed throughout the pan. Then we're going to slide these into a 350-degree oven for the next 30-35 minutes. As you can see, I've changed shirts and our Snickerdoodle cake is out of the oven. It looks amazing. I can't wait to let these cool off. And then we're going to slice them open and fill them and frost them. Our Snickerdoodle cake has been baked and cooling, so now it's time to make our frosting, which is a brown sugar buttercream. So in my mixer I have 4 cups of butter. That's 2 pounds. I know it's a lot, but it is a 12-inch cake, and I don't mind if there's leftover icing because that brown sugar buttercream is really good. So I'm going to add a cup of vegetable shortening and a cup and a half of packed brown sugar. We're going to start this on low, turn it up to high, and then let it mix for about 6 minutes until it gets light and fluffy. So our butter and shortening and brown sugar are nice and fluffy. Now we're going to add powdered sugar. I have 12 cups, and I know once again sounds like a lot. It is double the regular recipe, because if you remember we doubled the recipe for the cake itself. So I'm going to add this 2 to 3 cups at a time, let it mix in, and then add some more. Otherwise we'll have an explosion of powdered sugar around the kitchen. Okay, so the powdered sugar is all incorporated for the most part. Now we're going to add a teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of vanilla, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. And I know that sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about 12 cups of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. And this buttercream has no milk in it, so you need a lot of moisture, hence the 2 tablespoons of vanilla. So we're going to turn this on low, set our timer for another 6 minutes, we're going to move our way up to high and let it mix for 6 minutes till the buttercream gets nice and fluffy. So our our brown sugar buttercream is ready, nice and fluffy. So we're going to head over to the table to make our other filling, because this Snickerdoodle cake has 2 fillings, and then we'll start assembling. So there's a cinnamon sugar filling to the Snickerdoodle cake that is basically butter, cinnamon, sugar. So I have a cup of butter that I've melted on the stove. I'm going to add 2 cups of plain white sugar. And once again, this is double the recipe because we made double the cake. We're going to slowly whisk in the sugar. And then I have a half a cup of cinnamon. I know that also sounds like a lot, but between the butter and the sugar, it actually balances out. We're going to stir that in. And then lastly, I have 2 teaspoons of vanilla that we're just going to stir in. And now, with our cinnamon sugar spread and our white chocolate ganache, which is in a different video, and our brown sugar buttercream, we are ready to slice open and assemble our Snickerdoodle cake. So I have a collar around my cake that gives me like a guideline of where to cut. So I'm going to start. And clearly I need a bigger knife. So I'm going to have to rotate the collar around so that we can get all the way around the cake. Okay, so I have half of my cake. We're going to center it on the board. I'm going to take that cinnamon sugar mixture I just made, pour it over the top, spread a thin layer of it around, and then we're going to slide this into the refrigerator and let that cinnamon sugar mixture harden up just a little, and then we'll bring it out and go with our next layers. So our cinnamon sugar has set just a little. I don't want it hard, just enough that I can spread my white chocolate ganache on top without it spreading around and becoming a mixture with that cinnamon sugar. So I'm just going to spread a layer of the ganache. Then we're going to add the second layer of the cake on top and put a layer of buttercream on. Put this in the refrigerator to let it set, and then we'll start on the next 2. So, buttercream slightly set. Next layer of cake. It's another one that I have cut in half. Push it down in here. Cinnamon. And we're going to throw this back in the refrigerator so that that cinnamon can harden enough to spread the white chocolate ganache on top. Sense a pattern here? There's a theme. So the cinnamon sugar is set. We're going to add another layer of our white chocolate ganache. Spread it all around. And then our layer of cake. layer of buttercream. We're going to let that set, and then we'll work on our third layer. So we're back with our third and final layer, or third and final cake. It's our fifth layer. I'm going to add the last of the cinnamon sugar, let it set, then we're going to do the ganache. So we have our final layer of white chocolate ganache. I'm just going to spread another thin layer over the top of. Then we're going to add the final layer of cake. And ice. So the first thing I'm going to do is like a crude icing of the cake. It's that brown sugar buttercream again. So what I want to do is get a layer of icing around the cake, and then I'm going to let that cool off in the refrigerator, let the icing set, and come in and do another round of icing all along the cake and make it look pretty. And clean up the cake board, because I make a mess. Alright, so we're going to stick this back in the refrigerator, let it set for about 20 minutes, and then come back and do a full icing. So our icing has had a little bit of time to set, so now I'm going to do another layer around and cover up the holes in where the cake part is sticking out of the icing. And then we'll get to putting just some little decorations on it. This cake doesn't need a whole lot of adornment, just a little. Add some of that brown sugar buttercream. And then I'm just going to make little stars along the top just to give it a little bit of a decoration. And this is my 1M tip that I also use for rosettes. So I think I'm just going to pipe a few of them on the top. And there we are, Snickerdoodle cake.